Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Article Club.
Welcome.
This is the show where we choose an article. We read an article, and we talk about it.
And this one is a doozy.
Yeah, what's going on today?
This one-
What are we reading?
Were we to listen to it, which I did not because I don't believe listening counts as reading.
Right,
But-
ironically,
But
with this medium.
is 41 minutes long. So it's
Yeah,
a long,
not
it's a
short.
meaty sucker.
And we all know I have trouble printing, and my printout happened to be 29 pages.
Wow.
Somehow.
Like I said-
Double-sided.
Like I said, it's a doozy. So this one comes to us from The Atlantic, where all sorts of gems up in there, called The Antisocial Century. So the premise is basically America, this is all about America, although it sounds like this is a global problem, but Americans are spending more and more time alone. There's huge impacts of that downstream on our personalities, on how we relate to other people, and even there's some, and we'll get in here at the end, our relationship to reality, which is a little bit crazy. My biggest takeaway from this is that we don't know what's good for us, and we think being antisocial is good for us, but it turns out it's deeply not.
Yeah, we think it's rejuvenating or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, but it turns out not at all. So we'll get into that.
Oof.
The article opens talking about the author's favorite restaurant that is basically now just all takeout, which shout out to the company we used to work for, Uber Eats.
Yeah. We were part of building Uber Eats together.
Yeah, we're
that
part
was
of this.
really where this friendship budded.
We're part
Ironically.
of the problem, as it
And
turns out.
77% or something the article says of
74.
all restaurant traffic is takeout.
Is off premise, yeah.
What
All
if
these fancy terms for
that-
basically just mean that everyone's ordering takeout.
Mind-blowing.
And what's crazy is everyone's like, oh, that must have happened when COVID happened, but actually no, it's up 61% since COVID. So
People
we're
are just hibernating.
yeah. They shout out
Shout
what a
out to
callback
the sleep
the last
episode
Yeah.
where even if you're hibernating, you might not be getting
Exactly.
the rejuvenation that sleep,
And then the sad part about
Imbues.
everyone eating, only ordering takeout is that people having dinner or drinks with friends is down by 30% in the last 20 years. So basically people
That-
just are not hanging out.
Truly sad. Okay, before you get into the rest of the article,
Yeah.
Also people going out by themselves is up,
Yes.
which is kind of crazy. It's not just I'm hermiting, I don't want to go anywhere. It's I don't want to see people, but I will go out by myself.
Yeah, it's I just want to
vibes.
be alone.
Mm-hmm.
They talk a lot about
Me
the
time.
difference between alone and
lonely.
solitude
Oh,
and
yeah.
lone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the line that just absolutely sent me on this was the privatization of American leisure. What a freaking line. And so I think most people talk about this oh, COVID ruined us. COVID was the big deciding factor of us all just spending time indoors and becoming antisocial. But Americans actually spent more time alone in 2023 than they did in 2021 when we were all truly locked in our apartments. So this is not a COVID problem. This is basically just been happening since the 70s and 80s. We've just been in this downward real spiral of decline of hanging out with other people. And then you hear about Vivek, our guy Vivek Murthy was now declared loneliness a public health epidemic,
Yes.
Along with smoking
Yes.
and
the parents
obesity.
and the parents are not all right.
I know.
On
No
top of
one's
that.
all right. No,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we get into here about how the men are also not all right,
Yeah.
which
Oh yeah.
my boyfriend says I talk too much about, but it's
What
because
do
they're
they
not.
What do they call it in the article? And we can dig into it. They're solo monks or something. What does he
I don't know,
say?
but I only recently learned that.
Secular monks.
I only learned that incel means involuntary celibate.
Oh yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I once asked my
think that's part of
grandmother. Yeah, exactly. I once asked my grandmother, who has lived alone since my grandfather died in 1999. I was like, "Do you ever get lonely?" Or
Oh, I thought you were gonna say horny.
no, she has had boyfriends, but they've never lived with them. And she was like, "Well, I get I don't get lonely, but sometimes I get lonesome." Which I was like, I don't totally know what the difference is there, but I think it's sort of what they're talking about with solitude versus
Right.
actually loneliness.
Okay. Can I tell you my maybe the biggest earth-shattering thing for me was I never thought about loneliness as a biological trigger to get out and get the things you need for your mind.
Totally.
Right? So in the article, he's talking about, hey, maybe we're lonely for a reason. And it used to be that if you start to feel that loneliness, it's a cue to get up and go, hang out with somebody, get a little infusion of the social stuff that we need as human beings. And now you can just pick up your phone, scroll through it, and it kind of I don't know that it alleviates that feeling, or if it numbs that feeling, or if it makes that feeling less.
Well, what he was saying is actually you don't actually get the salience of loneliness because you have this like low grade simmering of like I can always know where people are, and so I'm not really alone, or I can always text people or be on social media.
Right.
So you're not actually fully feeling that. So then you don't actually feel like you need to go out and socialize.
Okay. So say loneliness is a biological response. You start to feel lonely. I guess, you're one person who does more things than most people I know. And it's not just socializing. It's a variety of things. You go to concerts, you go to talks, you make resolutions to have intergenerational friendships. Do you feel like that's in response to something biological? Do you think that's habitual? Do you think it's knowing thyself?
Yeah, I think it's probably a couple. I think it's probably a lot of things conflated together. I think it's one, we are hypersocial animals. I am just like leaning into that. I think I'm afraid of what my emotional state could look like if I don't do that.
Do you self-identify as that? Like an extrovert, like a hypersocial extrovert?
I mean, sometimes I've thought to myself, what am I like running away from, or why can't I sit alone? Or I think some of it's a productivity mindset that we have. That's another episode on capitalism. But I think some of it's just the need to be totally productive at all times. And productivity for me can look like a lot of different things.
Like I've got a Thursday night, I'm going to learn something, go to this thing, experience life and culture.
I should be deepening myself.
It sort of reminds me of, I have a travel obsession / problem / this idea of a life CV that millennials now have. It used to be,
I haven't heard that.
Life CV. It's like, it used to be you work 30 years at a company and that's your, and you go home to your family or whatever. Now we can all see all the places everyone's been. Mm-hmm. The other day on Instagram, there was this stupid checkbox thing going around that was like, check all the countries you've been to or whatever and pass it along. It's like this look at me thing.
Self-promotion.
Life CV.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then are you really, are you doing it to enrich
Who are you doing it for?
Exactly.
Am I just going to these talks to tell people I'm going to talks?
I think from my interpretation, you have less of that life CV that I need to show off. In fact, you don't at all. And maybe it's more I have this time, I want to use it.
I want to.
My brain.
I feel the need to make the most out of it at all times, probably.
But have you ever felt it that it would be biological? Like, have you ever thought about that?
I haven't thought about it. I think when I lived in DC right after college, I didn't have like a set group of friends, and I was almost the like biological fear of like, oh, what if I don't have a social life, or like the craving more human interaction. So I feel like I got really good at finding these things, and now that I have friends, I'm like, well, if I'm doing these things here, I might as well do them with other people. I see. 2 birds, 1 stone.
Okay.
But let's take a walk through kind of the historical context. I thought this was so wild of like how we got here to this loneliness epidemic. So the article goes to talk about like the 1900s through the 1960s, which were like a boom time for socialism. It's like Gatsby era. You had all these churches. You had a rise in birth rates after World War II. There was all this like building of infrastructure in the U.S. I talk a lot about like third spaces, but like places outside of your home where you could gather. So that was like churches, bowling alleys, civic centers, playgrounds, like all this infrastructure. One of my favorite sort of novellas or whatever that I'd read in college that he talks about a lot in here is the Robert Putnam Bowling Alone. Had you ever read that before? Okay. So it was like basically this whole theory of from 1985 to 1994, involvement in community organizations across the U.S. just dropped in half across every social activity and every demographic. And some of this was like basically that post-World War II boom of like all these churches and all of these community spaces started slowly kind of declining. And then there was also this rise of prizing individualism, which is probably related to capitalism, if we're being honest. And
very American.
Totally. And then also there was the increase of TV and cars.
Yeah, that combo. And he makes it very clear.
Yeah.
TV plus car.
Yeah. Cars, you could build these houses out in the suburbs farther away from the cities. Yep. So you didn't need to have like the high density of people.
Nope.
And then once you had these houses, what were you going to do in them? Watch the TV.
You could drive far away from other people and entertain yourself forever.
Yeah. And if you watch TV, you're less likely to engage in literally any kind of social interaction.
There was that crazy stat in there around, I don't know, 300 hours a year or something that people could have used. They sunk it into TV, and you could have all the things that you could
have
do
done with
that.
300 hours. Yeah.
Which, of course, is a productivity.
And today I think about how many of my social conversations with people are actually about what TV we're watching. Mm-hmm. Like that is currency in its own right.
Well, it's definitely the small talk of our era.
Yeah, that's very true.
I wonder how that compares to the early days of TV.
Yeah,
that's probably all people
everyone was watching the same
about.
thing. You couldn't actually choose. So there was no personality to show there was no prestige TV in the 60s.
I care about, like with you, people with curated opinion, right? Like there's a mess out there. I can do anything at any time. I need somebody I trust to tell me where the art is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of, I started watching Real Pain last night.
Oh, what?
I liked it so far. I liked it so far.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that it's not free.
You like that it's not free?
It's now free. You can watch it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's some ads. But it's just like totally jarring in a movie like that, it's just a thoughtful, again, piece of art. And then I'm watching
Totally. And so,
Arby's ad.
So nowadays it's even worse because we spend 30% of our waking life on screens, which is wild. I bet it's more. I mean, I feel like during COVID, my friends and we all compare like how much we were on our phones,
it's
like
scary.
our average
I can't
hours.
look at this. I can't look at the stats, but I've been on a journey turning my phone to grayscale, like trying all the app timers, all the things, pretty unsuccessfully. And my excuse I say is, I have kids. I need to sort of be plugged in. Did you find yourself when he was going through this historical context and making the argument? I mean, it's a pretty ironclad argument about how we spend more and more time alone, but I felt myself going, no, but almost like in defense of the group thread.
Like,
it's sort of like
connected.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even be able to talk to these people otherwise.
Exactly. This person I knew in high school commented on my thing, and we had a little side DM about this. That would have never happened. And I started thinking about, it takes a village. He talks a lot about villages and, what that means, and we don't really have them IRL. But is the group thread now the village? And is part of that okay? Like, can I have a bunch of group? How much digital interaction would equal real life companionship? And how much does it count for?
I think you would argue it's not, because it's literally a correlation. The more you're on your phone, like statistically, the less you hang out with other people.
Yeah, I guess. But it cannot be black and white. There's got to be a hey, equal parts. He even says like, have people over for dinner, get the kids outside, and then like it's everything in moderation. It's
for sure. I don't think he's like proposing this extreme version of like get rid of screens entirely.
Yeah,
because that would be impossible.
The Amish example is interesting. He talks about the Amish and their, they get a rap as like anti-tech, anything progressive or whatever.
Luddites, yeah.
And it's more about things that affect and impact your values, the way you spend time, the way your mind works.
He's like, listen, some of them use cars and they use like some other forms of electric things. It's not like they're totally off the grid.
Right.
But they don't have TVs because I thought about that a lot, how this was wild. He was saying how basically all of modern architecture and interior design of spaces is purely around like focusing a room so that it's directed at a screen, and that was like a change over the last like 2 decades even. It's like, literally all we are doing is maximizing like your ability to rot on your couch.
A developer who's building apartments is quoted in the article saying, I just build these apartments for Netflix and chill. Like that's what people want.
That's all
they
want.
A big comfy couch, a big ass TV, close proximity to fridge. He doesn't say that. But.
Yeah. My roommate is moving out probably this month, which is crazy because I've never lived alone, which is a fascinating touch point on this article. I've only actually ever lived with other people, because I think one of the things he talks about is like how even if you think that you don't want a great like test that he references is that there's these commuters that are asked if you're on your commute to work. Do you think you'd be happier kind of sitting alone quietly, or do you think you'd be happier if you were like talking to some random Joe Schmo next to you? And everyone's like, for sure, the quiet solitude of, just reflective time on the commute would make me happier. And then they basically place dummies to chat up these other people, and they ask them how happy they are when they get off the train, and everyone is happier if they talk to someone else.
Everyone is delighted. Okay. Did you have any twinge of this is written by a man, and maybe as a woman commuting, you don't fucking want to talk to somebody?
No.
You had no twinge of that?
He didn't run the experiment.
I know, but Well, even the way the article ends, it's like, I think it's a beautiful idea to like take the dead space in life and make a friend out of it. And that sounds great. But like in stranger world, sometimes, sometimes you just got to like put on your don't talk to me face and move through the world.
Right. But like what trained you to that? And I think annoying people.
Yeah. Unwanted attention.
Yeah. I think that part of he could argue.
Which overcorrects you.
Yeah. But he could argue that because we aren't having these like micro interactions with random acquaintances, there is more like all of those interactions that you have are then more abrasive because we're not actually like attuned to these things. People don't know how to interact. Like I was thinking a lot about how people talked about it again post-COVID, but I think this has probably just been happening over time. Everyone is a total dick to customer service people. Like there's been more on United flights or plane flights. There's more like people getting violent against their flight attendants. There's more people like reporting like cursing out customer service reps. And a lot of that I think is because we actually don't have these like a model for these sort of day-to-day interactions.
Is the theory people are out of practice with how to interact with people?
I think he talks about some of it's out of practice, but it's also just like you build. He has a great line in here about tolerance and families teach us love, tribes teach us loyalty, and the village teaches us tolerance, or like a peaceful coexistence. And so if you aren't having the village, which is sort of like these acquaintance level contacts, your tolerance for anything, whether it be maybe this guy who said something that was like an unwanted attention thing to you, you're like, oh, fuck this guy. But actually, if you interact with him more, oh, well, he really is like a nice guy. This is probably not the best example.
I see he gives the example of the PTO meeting. If you have an opposing viewpoint or somebody, you disagree with somebody who's on the internet, it's like can be very divisive and you can't understand each other, whatever. If you're sitting next to each other at a PTO meeting, you hear the argument that your kids are in the same class. PTO is out. Oh, it's when it's vacation hours. PTA.
Freudian slip.
Clearly, I haven't gotten to that phase of parenthood yet. And I can totally understand that. I think my previous point is just like in the safe space. Oh, at the supermarket, I love those little interactions when I feel safe and comfortable doing them. But I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure
the expectation. There's just like a hint of like, oh, that would be nice to just be able to like plow your way through the world making friends all day long.
Yeah.
There's a bit of entitlement there. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think about living,
which we probably also have.
Back to the
nobody's intimidated by me if I say hi to them.
Yeah.
Whereas my husband has this boom boom voice, and he'll ask somebody, "What time? Like, excuse me, what time is it?" And they will noticeably
shudder.
I've had to tell him, you have to, like, I know that's just he's like, it's just the way my voice is, but you have to approach people.
Modulate it.
And so now he will literally like pray hands when he's asking a waiter for something. He's like, excuse me, sir, may I please have another fork? He like genuflex, which is that would stink to have to think about that also.
Yeah.
Oof.
But yes, I think about.
So might as well stay home. It's basically my point.
You
in my Snuggie
totally disagree
or
with
whatever.
Derek.
Remember the Snuggie?
Yeah. Yeah, that all built around people who want to like, snuggle up at home.
Snuggie, delivery food. It's the infrastructure is there for you.
Yeah, I think that the loneliness he talks about like sort of inhibits play and social. Like we are social beings. We are ultimately like social monkeys. And he talks about if you deprive rats and monkeys of play, they are socially and emotionally impaired. And so I think we are seeing this, and he talks a lot about this with like the younger generation who has grown up on screens and who is not having this social interactions. There's one line that really got me, which if young adults feel overwhelmed by the emotional costs of physical world togetherness and prone to keeping even close friends at a physical distance, that suggests that phones aren't just rewiring adolescence, they're upending the psychology of friendship as well, which is like these people that are like, oh yeah, I'll just text and stuff on my phone, but there's still things that they don't talk to anyone about. They don't talk to friends about. And then you're not getting any feedback. And like, it's just a really vicious cycle.
I can't imagine what that does to your internal world as an adolescent whose brain is forming.
And you're never fully away from your phone. So you're just like constantly.
They're just they're being experimented on. All these articles seem to have rats that we're experimenting on. Teenage kids and middle schoolers, they're being experimented on. I can't help but be very grateful that this is happening before my kids get to that age. And I know that's not helpful or productive.
Right.
But
it could get worse. Yeah.
at least I'm aware of, I don't just hand them this phone when they turn whatever. How old? I don't even know. That's a whole question.
Okay, so what are people doing if they're not socializing? They're staying at home. They're more likely to take meetings from home, to shop from home, to be entertained at home, eat at home, worship at home. Like there's all these at-home churches. Basically, the entire economy of the U.S. has reoriented itself to be focused on Americans staying at home. Yeah. But this is what was interesting when you were talking about having friends over, but what they're not doing is socializing at home. They're over the last 20 years, the average amount of time Americans are spending hosting someone in their house or socializing or even attending a social event in someone else's home is down by a third. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we're also inviting people into these Netflix and chill environments that we've created.
Okay. I have a lot of questions about solitude when you're with a partner.
Ooh.
And I'm curious, first of all, do you feel like you and your partner can be alone together? Is it recharging? Is it filling up aloneness cup, but also feels like companionship in this nice way? How does that feel for you?
I think because we have not been together as long, I don't feel and we don't live together. So when we're alone together, if we are alone together, I think in my house, yes, I do feel that way. But if I'm at his house, I don't feel that way. Where I'm just,
you feel like you're socializing.
Yeah, or I'm just, I don't have all of my creatures of comfort, which is maybe a part of maybe I should just be uncomfortable, and that can be enough. But yes, I do. I wouldn't say 100%. I think sometimes alone is different for me because I know that I have access to this person, and so I'm constantly probably thinking about should I ask him this, or what if I wonder what he thinks about this thing that I'm talking about. Just the access to another person makes me not be fully enveloped in solitude.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've been thinking about this a lot while reading the article because I'm never alone. Having a husband and 2 children, but I very much relate to, we put the kids to bed and then we sit on the couch and we do work while watching something. We co-screen, 3 screens, phone, work, laptop, watch a show or whatever. And the last thing we're doing is interacting. Or we have to make it. Charlie had a cute idea last year. He's like, let's do one night game night. Let's make a point, or read night. Whatever.
Just be off screens.
Usually we both read before we go to bed. Once we're okay, we're done with screen time. Then we go read, and we still haven't interacted yet. I wonder if it's I'm but I'm with somebody else. In the article, he talks about being alone. Their count hours or whatever. He's counting as you're the only person in the room. I'm never the only person in the room. So does that mean I'm doing a better job of getting those socializing companionship hours in? Or does that mean
he doesn't really talk about if your family counts as socializing or not?
Yeah, that's I guess that's my big question. I will also say, I'm curious, does he talk about kids or being a parent?
No, I was just thinking about the only stuff he talks about really. I mean, I think he talks a lot of time about the gender piece of this, but more so on how
on the men,
on the young men, and then he talks about I think families of families are the love piece, but you actually need again these sort of, he calls it the village. I think you could also call it acquaintances, sort of when you're thinking of the concentric circles of connectedness, the people that you don't necessarily, that you aren't on the group thread, but that you actually need this sort of layer of people that it's you see maybe once or twice a year, kind of thing.
Well, we've talked about this a little bit, that having young children and dealing with modern life with children just makes you more likely to reach out and connect. You might not have nothing else in common with people, but they have kids down the street. They live near you and they have kids around you, and there's just this inherent sort of need for community to build that village, which is nice. But the big, as I'm reading this, the thing, the elephant in the room for me is having children is extremely isolating, extremely, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I always say COVID kind of prepared us for that because we had our daughter sort of near the tail end of COVID. I think if we hadn't been hunkered down in the house, not seeing anyone, cooking all of our meals or whatever, it would have been so shocking to all of a sudden be you are inside, you are there's so many more barriers to going out. So I read this and I'm also like, cool, sounds nice to go out every night with friends. Cool, sounds nice to just have people over your house. Do you know what a shit show that is when you have 2 young kids and you're inviting other kids and family? Like the schedule's alone. Like it's just this other, I don't know. It's just this other whole,
which is probably a sign
thing.
that you are not the lonely generation. Like you are. I bet by all these measures, you are probably not the problem child of this.
Well, I think I'm not even being accounted for in this article in a lot of ways. And sure, this is a phase, but like I just don't think when you have young children, it's like an accurate scope of where how you're doing on the companionship front.
Yeah. It's I think you're not featured because they're not super worried about you. Maybe.
I don't know. The Surgeon General, like
parents
alongside
are like
alongside his
isolated.
loneliness thing, had this like the parents are not doing well.
Yeah,
like they are, like cuppeth fulleth.
Yeah, but I think what the solutions are for you is like just like more infrastructure, like is a bunch of policy related things. Where this is just more like the solutions for people like young men is like, oh, you got to get off your.
I think that's fair.
Screens.
Also the like that being all you know. As an adolescent, the phone is all you know, screen is all you know. Because we can, I think, I do think because whatever, we grew up analog, we've been in this inside outside world, we've been more social, less social, we've gone through different phases of our lives, we're a bit older, we can recognize that need in ourselves.
Yeah, that when we're spending way too much time on our phones, we're like, oh, this feels different, and I need to go back to.
Totally.
I mean, the best I think vacation I've taken in the last, I would dare to say decade, was when I went sailing last Christmas and we were out of cell phone service. And so we just didn't use our phones for an entire week. And I was like, holy guacamole. Like I did not know how different I could feel. I think I was so much happier. Like my therapist was like, you seem different after. And I think it literally lasted for probably 3 months. And then I was on my laptop, stressed at work, on my phone, blah, blah, blah. But the just truly there were days at a time where I didn't even like pick up my phone. It was just off. And I think that like just not being on screens, also I'm sure being in nature, all those things that people we know are good for us, made a huge difference mentally.
Did it make you feel like the world is so big and your little worries are small?
Yeah, it wasn't even necessarily I almost couldn't have articulated the mental shit. It wasn't like I was having all these realizations in the moment. It was that like, oh yeah, this doesn't matter. And like, wow, this is so beautiful. It was more just like my brain after being off my screen for, 7 days, the baseline was just, I woke up a happier person. There were no
That's the study we need.
I know.
We need to do some research after this.
Yeah.
The forced detox.
Yeah.
2 weeks no phone or whatever.
Right.
Like I don't even know what you look at.
Yeah.
Brain,
exactly.
Mood.
So great. It was so magical. Which brings us to I feel like the flip side of this, which they talk about a lot, which is like the AI generation and how I feel like, I mean, if I had a nickel for every single time someone's like, well, here's this app that'll connect you more, or here's this technology that'll connect you more. It's like, well, why is it so hard to just actually connect to people? Why do we need an AI chatbot who's going to be my boyfriend now?
Okay, the craziest thing about all that was, hey, you people who think the chatbot is creepy, how is it that much creepier to be intimately related with all of your friends over text?
Yeah.
Right? It's like you're corresponding via text with a phone. Like, so, and you're doing that all day long in another capacity. And of course, it's like, okay, but I know the person behind it. They're not a pretend person or whatever. But it's the same mechanism.
Well, and do you feel like you've ever had conversations, like there's sort of the protective veneer that phones give you that like removes you a little bit. Like I feel like I don't know that I've done this, I'm sure I have, but that I've had conversations with friends over text where they like dump all this stuff on me and then I see them in person and it's like, we don't acknowledge that. Or
I can only on breakups, like early dating stories. Like that's thank God for text. Like how did people do that in the olden times? They had to call the person.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like the Selena Gomez song.
And then what about when AI becomes
on the phone, right?
What about when AI can actually just talk to you? So it's like truly like,
I know.
We're just not getting like the physical contact piece, and like, is that important?
I don't know. I do think it's easy to say, oh, that's so creepy. Oh, that's so inhuman. Oh, look at all the dangers or whatever. Maybe it also helps people. Maybe they're
Yeah.
really lonely old people who, like, this brings the socialization that they couldn't otherwise have. Maybe they're immobile. Maybe this could be good for some people.
Yeah. I think this brings me back to like if you, let's say you get used to, and maybe you're savvy enough to train your AI.
It's like, oh my God, I'm just
boyfriend.
thinking about Smarter Child, our AIM Smarter Child. Did you not have Smarter Child?
No.
You know AIM.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. AOL Instant Messenger.
Yeah, AOL Instant Messenger. Smarter Child was I don't know, somebody you could put on your buddy list, and it was a robot.
bot.
It was a bot.
But
And
what would it talk to you about?
It would sometimes it'd be sassy. You just ask it questions and like get it to say funny stuff. And
Yeah.
you guys didn't have Smarter Child was it.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and you didn't really. It wasn't like, oh, I'm
really talking to a person.
I'm lonely. I'm going to talk to Smarter Child.
Yeah.
It was sort of like a game,
Why?
or like, look what Smarter Child said. Yeah,
But yes, the hard part about this
this
is
is
like
not new.
is like, what if, then I think he talks about like you have this bot who like maybe tells you what you need to hear and is very like lovely,
Right.
and then what happens when you actually go into the real world, and someone disagrees with you, or someone like does something you don't like,
Right, you
because
have no
humans are
tools
fallible,
for
and then you don't know how to
conflict
deal with it. So then you're like,
resolution.
oh, I just prefer my world with
Yeah.
my AI bot.
Or I don't even know why I'm playing devil's advocate on
you
this stuff
love
because
the AI.
yeah,
You're
because
gonna
I'm
get
like,
hire an
there's
AI
no like I'm
babysitter.
not about to like talk to an AI or have them babysit my children. Although I did dream about Smart House, the Disney Channel original movie, for
Yeah.
a long time, where it's like, dear house, like create
Pam,
it, like
yeah.
Pam, make me a smoothie.
Pat.
Now Pat. Now my kid can control Siri. She's like, hey Siri, turn on the Frozen soundtrack, turn it up, da da da, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh shit, she and the house are gonna rebel against.
Oh
me.
yeah, this past weekend, a friend works on Alexa, and she was saying, "Oh, you know that you can train your Alexa so that like she'll say at dinner time like Bluey's having broccoli and chicken for dinner," and then your kid's like, "Oh, well, I'll eat my broccoli and chicken because Bluey's having it."
Ooh, maybe we try that.
I know.
We've been doing jokes. She says, hey, hey Siri, tell me a joke
Yeah.
for kids, which important distinction. Because we
Yeah,
were like,
yeah,
hey
yeah.
Siri, tell me a joke. And they weren't inappropriate, but it was
Yeah,
like
above the-
not. Hey Siri, tell me a joke for kids,
What
which
was
has
a
been
good
cute. Like why is a giraffe's neck long? Because their feet are stinky.
That's horrible.
Why? It's a good quote unquote.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is, okay, yes. How do you deal with people in the real world if AI chatbots become your new normal and you fall in love with them and da da da? But also, are there tools that they could help you learn for navigating relationships?
Right. Totally.
Like maybe they do help you sift through, especially if so much of our relationships are happening digitally.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, bot, what do I respond to this person with? I don't know.
Totally. I mean, he talks a lot about how basically the young men are not all right, and that more than any other age group or gender spread, that they are just basically totally spending less and less time with other people. And so
Yeah.
what do you, I don't know. And this bleeds into politics. This bleeds into I don't know, just extremism.
Yeah.
And so what the heck do you do about it?
There's a whole blooming thread on the boys are not all right. Also in the parenting world, if you
Yeah.
have a boy,
Oh, totally.
like it is a fact. It is a scientific fact that I don't know by what age boys are a year behind girls, like in development.
Yeah,
they
yeah,
just
yeah.
take a little bit longer. So do you hold them back? How do you make sure school is set up for sit down and learn, and young boys can't necessarily do that or control
yeah.
their bodies, or and what does that mean?
Have you watched that, or have you heard about that Netflix doc, Don't Die, about this guy who's like, okay, so it's like this gazillionaire who turns out is Mormon, who's like dead set on living as long as he possibly can, like wants to live forever. But then when you look at they talk a little bit about this too, and I think about all these longevity startups that are happening. But if you look at his day, his entire day is alone and is about like, it's all doing these like physical optimization things to increase his longevity. And then you're just sort of like, for what?
Yeah. Well,
You're not doing anything social.
The irony in all of that, right, is that people who are or don't have that social stimulation are unhealthy because they're mentally.
Right. So
They're,
I'm like, maybe you'll live. And he's
mentally
doing,
and
all
physically
these mental
unhealthy.
things to.
So how are people not calculating that part?
I think they are.
Do you
I think
just
they're
not know?
doing. Well, I don't know about the social piece, but I think he's doing stuff to like also make sure that his brain stays sharp too. But Yeah, it's so
Well, we gotta build in that
so
social
isolated
time.
because who could? I think about this a lot. We've talked before about like how celebrities are so lonely because ultimately you have to pay people to be your friend,
And they're always trying to get something.
right? Because no one
Everyone's
could
trying to get
travel with you on the schedule, so it's like so lonely. And again, then all the people that are around you all the time are ones that have to be because they work for you.
Yeah. Another thing that really struck me is the hopelessness, the male hopelessness and the less, they just like don't have the oomph in them to reach out when they need it or don't feel like they need it. And we talk about this a lot with the men in our lives who want to have the kind of intimate friendships and relationships that we have. And we're constantly, we have an annual girls trip. We have we plan the things. We make it a point to see each other. We tell each other mostly everything,
Yeah.
And, my husband has lots of great friends, but it's he doesn't have those sorts of relationships, those confidants. I find myself pushing him, ask that guy out, go get a beer, especially later in life, especially as a dad.
Do you think that's because they just had the crutch before? Like, what did our parent, like my dad actually has a lot of strong male friends. Like, what did our parents or our grandparents do for men to socialize? I think there was more infrastructure. It was it was like the
maybe you had to work
Shriners
harder.
Club and all that shit.
Maybe you had to work harder to stay in touch. Maybe there was more of an expectation that you would end up in the place that you started. So you're kind of
had the people you
invested
grew up
in those
with.
people, whereas us, I never had that expectation. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no.
Because I moved around a ton as a kid. Yeah, maybe you more so.
There, but I think they would have. There was no expectation, but most people that grow up in Kentucky, in Louisville, stay there. So
and it just has the later in life male friendships have seemed to be tougher.
Yeah. I think. Oh, so my great uncle just died like a month ago, and at his funeral, thank you. He was 93, had a very long life, but at his funeral, he, my mom, I didn't go, but my mom said that she was like, there were
your grandma's brother.
My grandma's brother. She said there were 150 people there, and she was like, and there were all these people that were like my age because he had this like social club that was like my mom was just like, I was shocked by like all of these different organizations he was a part of, and that he like built all this community around these different things. Like he had a men's book club, he had a men's group where they like did like a salon where they like brought different articles and like talked about them group.
Oh, I thought you meant a hair salon.
Yeah, no.
But he had a barber shop.
I'm like, he was doing this at 93. Like that's
incredible.
Crazy.
Okay, that right there is the reason it's important to get out.
Yeah.
And be around people.
Yeah, you lived to 93.
150 people at your funeral.
At 93, when everyone else is dead.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's go to like we've really I'm sure built the listener up with all of this exciting stuff about how we're fucked from a loneliness perspective. So what's the solution?
Simple.
Just turn off
Invite
that phone.
people over.
Turn off that phone, invite people over. I think he throws a little bit on the government of like, okay, we need to build more of these third places.
Feel that. Yeah. Where do we go?
He talks about like in neighborhoods, especially like lower income neighborhoods. Yeah, they're like, there is literally nowhere for teens are just bored.
You go to 7-Eleven or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember, I grew up in the suburbs and it was like, do we go to the movie? Yeah. Do we go to the movies? Do we go to the mall? We would never like go into our town center and walk around. We would never go to the library. They're just... Yeah. You wouldn't go back to school. You go to somebody's basement, right?
Yeah, he's basically like
where did you go?
I feel like we went over to people's houses a lot. We or like played sports. It was like the athletic kind of stuff. You were outside playing sports. We did like the T-ball league. We did we went bowling some. We would go to movies. We'd go to the pool at our country club, which is, obviously prohibitive, but
sounds nice.
Not super inclusive. It's private, but yes. But yeah, there's not a lot of like that public infrastructure.
I wonder how team sports and theater and kids activities have changed with digital stuff now.
Yeah. I think it's hard to get them to like be focused on it.
Yeah. I wonder how that is. Cause that was the way it was. That, that's what if you wanted to be social and do something fun with your friends, you just did one of these activities.
Yeah. Plays or whatever. Yeah.
Maybe maybe even more important than getting even less funding.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. That's certainly getting cut in this administration.
Right. When it turns out it's probably the most effective part of school.
Yeah. And then I think too, like the idea, religion is also on the decline, which I'm sure is contributing to some of this because you don't have like that weekly, random Mrs. Smith that you see at the church every weekend. But I do think I liked the commentary on like rituals and like what are I have a lot of friends, but I'm like, are you gonna take your kids to church or synagogue or whatever? And they're like, no, but we'll have our own Sunday ritual. And I'm like, will you really? Are you really going into the woods every Sunday or whatever?
Yeah, and I guess, and is that with other people? Like, which part is it solving, the spiritual part? There's a lot of conversation about, we want our kids to be spiritual and believe in something, so how do we build that, as a family? But that there's no place to meet other people around that thing. There's people in my life who I think are doing a good job of, hey, life is crazy, but I'm gonna set up a recurring, like you and I are doing right now, a recurring time to talk about something with each other. A recurring time to see friends we don't normally see, and it's unsexy, but scheduling, intimacy.
What any good ones?
Friends are just like literally have a calendar of their like friend/couple friends and are rotating. They're like
come into my TV home.
They're like, it's 2025. Be on the lookout for some calendar holds.
Nice. I like that.
And it's not necessarily even at their house. It's we can move it when we get to it, but we're putting it on the calendar, which I love.
Yeah. Okay. So. TLDR, hang out with people.
Go outside. But
go out, become Amish.
You can be discerning still.
Yeah.
My only push, Hey, give me a smile. No, thank you. You don't have to smile.
Yeah, you don't have to talk to the random man on the train who's just giving you bids for attention.
Or just telling you to smile.
Yeah. That doesn't count as a conversation.
No, it does not count. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all I'm here to say.
Yeah.
All right, should we shift to our favorite little ending segment here?
You betcha. You betcha bottom dollar.
So at the end of every episode, we just chat a little bit about what's on the group chat. What's hitting up that thread these days?
This is a very personal, but I'm learning ubiquitous challenge.
Okay.
You may have noticed from across the aisle that I have developed a sty on my eye. And this is my second sty in 3 months. I had a lower one. Now I got an upper one. And they last for months. It's so annoying. And turns out everyone I tell about this is like, oh yeah, I just had a sty. Or I have blepharitis, which I have only recently learned is a thing. So my group chat has been blown up about like how to treat a sty.
Okay, can we just tell us what is this? Like, what is actually happening?
It's basically like when a tear duct or like an eyelash duct gets like clogged, and you get like, it looks like sort of the worst underground pimple you've ever had, but like on your eyelid. No, so no one really knows. It could be like stress. It could just be poor eye hygiene.
To have 2 in 3.
I know. Apparently, this is actually somewhat common because this is so, plug your ears if you're sensitive, but like it oozes stuff at night. And so, it wouldn't be surprising that one gets another. But I've learned a couple of things. Everyone tells you like just do a warm or hot compress. But I learned about this sick eye hot compress that is microwave. So it's not wet. So you just have to microwave it. It's sort of like those neck pillows you would use that were like filled with lavender when you were younger. But for your eye.
I'm pretty sure my sister sleeps with one of those every night.
Sick.
I think so.
So I got one of those, and that I'm doing that multiple times a day. And then my other thing for the eyes is these wipes, which I just ordered off Amazon. They haven't come yet, so I'm preemptively telling you these eye wipes to keep the area clean.
Great. So those are preventative.
Yeah.
Also. Okay. And there's nothing they can give you other than that.
I'm told no.
Fuck just put ice on it.
I know.
Fuck that.
I know. The ophthalmologist,
it's 2025.
which sounds like you have a lisp when you say ophthalmologist. It's just like hot compress, baby.
Okay. Well, wow. Thank you. PSA. Yeah. In a unrelated fashion, something that's blowing up the group thread on my end is Martha Stewart.
Oh.
Just watched her Netflix documentary, and my mother basically was the most incredible cook, host, Martha Stewart-esque. Without the edge, I would say. But oh my God, I was completely manipulated by the media to think that she was this mean, evil woman or whatever. And it was an absolute witch hunt. This case should have never been brought against her. It is wild that she was just dragged through the mud. What's her name in Game of Thrones? Cersei or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Martha.
I just read her
as a baller businesswoman,
as a
the
tag
only
on.
self-made billionaire that
know.
we're going
Female
to drag
self-made
her
billionaire.
through the
I
mud in
know.
these legal things. And that's what I thought too. Like, oh, she's bad, insider trading, blah, blah, blah.
No, James
Wow.
Comey, Jimbo, what were you doing,
The
man?
hell, man?
Yeah, made an example of her.
God.
I just read her interview with Pamela Anderson in maybe Elle.
She
or Vogue.
interviewed Pam
Yeah,
or the
they
other way around?
interviewed each other basically,
Cute.
and legends.
The both
she
of them.
also got short end of the stick.
Yeah. Oh God. I'm so happy that she it was like, oh, started with the Justin Bieber roast, but became friends with Snoop, and is like continue to reinvent herself.
I know. She's
Is
just a phoenix.
great Insta follow.
Yeah. Okay.
Total babe. Like still got the hot tips.
Yeah.
Never Martha.
And she's still solo, right?
Yeah, and she's had a crazy sort of like romantic story too.
Love her.
Yeah. It's just
Right.
and you know what? Like
Go Martha, follow. Not that
beat
she
of her
needs
own
it.
beat of her own drum. Not everyone's gonna understand you, but like keep on going.
You do you, Martha.
Yeah, exactly.
Love that.
All right. Well, on that note, you do you.
You
Beat
do
to-
you.
beat-
You do you,
beat
except
to
for
the
with
beat
other
of your own
people.
drum. March to the beat of your own drum with other people. That's the moral of the story. Joining a marching band. All right.
We'll see you next time
Bye.
on Article Club.